Hello, what's up? Polymonster here, and today I'm going to finish up scraping Phonica records into my app diig, and hopefully by the end of this video I will have this information displaying and playing audio in my app. I'm going to just do this one page, take it slowly, one page at a time, just so I don't get any get flagged or anything. So I think there is 18 releases on this page, and this is what they look like, and we're going to hopefully see these in iOS form. So let's see how that happens. Right, so the stores page, well, this information in stores.json is kind of like metadata to explain what information or what pages want to be scraped, and also how to display these in the app. So I need to I've already added one. I added this at the start, and this is the page that we're going to scrape. So just the URL, one page, because what it will do is append the page numbers if it iterated through more of them. So this is already set up. I did that on the very first stream, kind of fleshing it out. Now what I need to do is start actually scraping the information for real and not using these HTML pages. So what I'm going to do is move these into this folder called schemas, which is just reference for the working version. These are actually cut down in the other ones, but I'm just going to leave these in. So that's like for future reference. I actually don't really have any tests, which I wish I'd written tests as I went along for the scrapers, but that's could be something that I retroactively add to the framework. So what Phonica was doing originally, it was caching the page instead of fetching the HTML, and it was also using a dummy product page. Now what I'm going to do is replace that, so it will fetch the page from URL, and then it will fetch all of the information from the correct URL. It's going to then put all of the information into a dictionary of releases, and that's going to be stashed out. The first thing I'm going to do is just run this once locally. And then once that works, then I'm going to automate this on a GitHub action. Okay, so I have just hooked up some bits and pieces here. Scraping the product, I need to pass actually the URL and the driver. I've start a driver at the start of a session, so it's just not continually creating them. Then that gets passed into execute page with the URL, and then it gets passed through to scrape product, and then we grab resource registry, which is a JSON file. They are stored here. This is essentially just a mirror of the database. Originally, before the database, I was actually fetching these information from GitHub. And it was been handy in one case when I actually messed up the database and lost information. So I'm going to do that for now. Just run this locally. It should run some code and then write out a file. I've added a sleep here just to kind of, so it'll take a little while to go through all of these elements, just so I don't kind of cause any alarm. Let's see how it goes. I should have really put some printing in here so I actually know what's going on. Right, so that has actually finished, and while I was here, I was just adding a little log just so the console's responsive, and when this is running remotely, you could kind of see where it gets up to. But here we have some info Let's see about that. So back to Phonica. First one, LCD sound system, home, Tom, Sharkit, edit. I already looked at this one before. I knew that there was only one track, one playable track. So that should have one track. The second one should be Fortet, Into Dust, Still Falling. Then we have Burial, Louis Vega, J Hobie, and Bushwhacker. And I would check the Bushwhacker ones. Oh, that's wrong. That's the artist. Check Bushwhacker. It's got 4 tracks. Jack the Groove, middle channel. They're kind of some of the information. So let's check now. Okay. Second release, Phonica, Into Dust, Still Falling, Fortet, XL Recordings. That was correct. Then we had Burial. Yes. Louis Vega. Yes. Then we go to Bushwhacker and Jack the Groove, middle channel. Yep, they were the MP3s. Track URLs isn't actually correct. That is just the MP3 without the CDN. I need to prefix the CDN onto the MP3, so I'll do that next. But this seems to have worked nicely. It's gathered the info and it has stored it in there. So the next thing to do is to configure this so multiple pages can run. There's some information I need to fill out. These session scraped IDs. I think these are used to track. If things exist in multiple pages, then you know you don't have to update that again. I need to just check what the type is because I'm just using weakly typed Python here. Which is probably foolish, but this is just how I've always done Python. Okay, so a few things to clean up. I need to find out the CDN of the MP3s. Okay, I was just checking there that I found 2 tracks, and then I noticed this kind of like bleh at cloudfront.net, and I was worried that that might be different for the different releases, but at the moment that doesn't seem to be a problem. So I'm going to they're both the same, and that was from different releases, so I think it's always going to be the same. It is for the other record stores, so it's typically just how they work. So I just need to stick that onto the track URLs. CDN could be parameterized in the metadata. You know, these sort of things could be added later because it might change over time. And if it's in the metadata, it's quite handy because you don't have to change the code or rebuild anything. You can just change the file and then the scraper's going to pick it up. So for now, I think that should be fine. We have MP3s. I'm just going to fill out this session scraped IDs and see how that works in a different store. So I looked at the Juno implementation, and what session scraped IDs is I think it's a list. It's got append, and it just checks if ID is in. And here I'm just continuing. The Juno one was merging some dicks. I wasn't sure exactly why it was doing that, but if we've scraped it already in a session, there's no need to update the info. So basically it gets the ID, uses that as a key, and then we can just skip going any deeper and filling out any more information. So now I'll run it again, and this time it should print an update as it's updating, and that should be a bit more responsive so we know what's happening. And then we can see them coming through. It is a little bit slow. I'm going to take a bit more of a soft approach on here. and give it a nice breadth of time in between each release. It's going to run in a background job, so I think maybe 4 seconds is probably excessive. Maybe I'll just knock it down to a second, or I might make that configurable on a command line argument. Right, now with the new MP3s, I should be able to click on these. Perfect. It's playing music, and that was Bushwhacker. Did sound like Bushwhacker. Okay. So going to parameterize the sleep time, and then the final thing I have to hook up is actually the counter. Basically, the counter gets returned from the function because some sites might have to increment that differently. I suppose here our counter could be incremented by 18 because that's how I know the pages increase. And we know essentials is just 2 pages. So I can parameterize that. I just need to append the counter if it's non-zero. I wonder if 0 works actually. Let's see. All 0. Okay, 0 works. So I can append the counter, and then when I return it, I can add 18. That makes it a bit easier to do the logic. And then I can get this hooked up to automate it. Right, so I added a function called get scrape rate to diig, which basically you can pass in a rate, which is in seconds, as a command line. It'll just parse the sysargv, find the next one, make sure that it's valid. It doesn't make sure it's valid, but it will just assert if it doesn't exist, which is fine. Basically that I'm going to add this to the other scrapers at some point. It's just that some of them, they sometimes get terminated, and I think that maybe things are getting flagged, and there's no need to scrape like 100 pages in a millisecond, you know. So, you know, just per release, just kind of 2 seconds wait per release. It should be a bit faster than it was before. Okay, that's because that needs to be an integer. Anyway, because these run every night, it doesn't really matter that much if they're kind of slow. And I think maybe slow and steady is the way to do it. And I might, basically my experiment's going to be trying to get Yoyaku working again and going under the radar, because I kept getting flagged there. Okay, so now the final part of this is what needs to happen is once these complete, I think this might happen automatically. There's an auth session and patch releases should happen. Right, it might already work. So let's go to Firebase. And they're there. So this has already uploaded them for me, which is amazing. Yeah, we know LCD sound system. Cat, we know that that didn't get filled out. Phonica is the ID. Label, all of these infos there. Track names, track URLs. Oh, those 0. Oh no. Yes, it's just that. It's an index. It's an array. Oh, well, that was easy. So this is why it's nice and extendable, because I've already set this up. So it's you only have to implement the scrape page function, and then the rest of it comes along for the ride. So we have Phonica in the database now, and it should be an available store. So I should be able to, in theory, start bringing down information. It's something like I might need a chart or a way to index into that data. Right, okay, so one of them is that it's not in the stores yet because it's not on the main branch. So my changes need to be merged on the main branch, but for the time being, I'm going to just push to here, and then let's see if... So now I've pushed to Firebase. I have a thing which can update the stores script. This is from the branch. This will be, when this merges to main, that'll automatically happen. But now in here, in the stores, we should have Phonica, which we do. We have one section, which is essentials. And that's the information we have. Now, what I can't remember is how the feed finds the releases. Well, that's basically everything's working. I need to set up a GitHub action to do this automatically. So I may as well do that now and then add that into GitHub Actions in the scrape script. Scrape Juno Red Eye. Let's kick off let's do it in alphabetical order. It's essentially the same thing. So there's a thing that updates the stores first. We depend on that. We might have to install some, actually, I need to install Selenium. So I think Selenium is the only additional dependency that I needed to add from Selenium WebDriver. I'm pretty sure, but we'll see how it goes. We don't need this URLs key. The store is now Phonica. We have the key, clear trackers. These are the things that I need to find. Ah, okay, I know what it is. This has made me remember, but update Phonica. We'll add it on the action. It's not going to run just yet. We want clear trackers, and we've got key, and then we also had rate, which I'm going to set to 2 for the time being. So that's how easy it is to add a new GitHub action. So a lot of that's boilerplate, just copy and paste. For the time being, that's fine. So clear trackers is the thing that I'm interested in now. Clear trackers, sections, views, store name, section, view. So right, this was a clue in the console. Phonica essentials is the tracker key, and that's a searchable index in the database, which will return all of those items. What I have to do now is add that to anything in the page, section, view, and essentially this was why the verbose thing I mentioned before wasn't working how I wanted it to. So I just need to look at a reference example, and this would be a good thing to document a bit better. Okay. I'm noticing some weirdness, and I'll have to go back and check some things. But essentially, what happens is that for the time being, it doesn't really matter. But for each release that we visit, we add the searchable key, which is the store name, the section, and the view, which in our case, it ends up being store essentials because it's not genre based. This will be refined. I just want to see if I can get it working. I need a position counter, which is going to be pos. It's going to start at counter, and then each release pos can be incremented. So Phonica essentials will be updated, and it'll be assigned a position, and then I can actually search the database for anything that has this assigned. Now the problem with this is that what it means is if you scrape multiple sections of the website, you actually want this information to be present, so a thing can exist in more than one place. And that's where, if we've already parsed it, we want to query the database and then append it to it. But for the time being, this should at least get everything in there. And this should work, in theory, on a GitHub action. So what I'm going to do now is push to master, or main actually. Well, it might be master. Let's see. Is it? It's on a branch. All right, ignore that few bits before this. Right, so in the release, it adds the position that this is in that section or that view. So if it's in a chart, it would be the chart position, but this is its position in essentials. So they're going to appear in the same order that they appear in the website. I need to handle the case where something exists in two places, because if you've already scraped it, it's just continuing out of this loop in the scraped IDs, but I can add that later. What I care for now is I just want to get this running on a GitHub action. So I've got a git diff here. I'm going to push everything, and then I'm going to merge it into main. Right, that's pushed to main, merged and pushed to main. I'm not logged in on my GitHub here. I need my phone for authentication, but it should be possible to see that the scrape. No, because one hasn't ran yet. I'm going to have to go away from this session. Right, I went for dinner and then I came back and then I went through various stages of grief, trying to debug why this scraper wasn't working. This is annoying because it was on Phonica records, it was not parsing any releases and it wasn't printing anything out. So I had to start pushing changes into the main branch so I could run the CI and then figure out why it was failing. It turned out in the end that it started failing because on the Selenium WebDriver, if you try and get the HTML immediately after executing the script, it might not be ready yet. I suppose it makes sense now in hindsight because it's another process that's rendering the script. But it took me a while to figure out that, so I was just kind of like, I did in the end do a bit of a Google search, and I knew I wanted to wait. I figured out I wanted to wait, and then an AI told me the answer. So that was just, a bit of a stretch while I was debugging and adding all that info. But eventually got it working, and then here it was imported into the app. Imported in, but unfortunately, none of the audio or images are working. So for the next time, I'm going to try and debug that. So I'm leaving it there. The next thing to do is to debug the app and see why the content's not working, or the content delivery network links aren't working. But that should be hopefully fixable and get to the bottom of it. But for now, the info is in the app. That's what I wanted to happen. It's not quite there, but it's almost there. So I'm going to leave it there. Have a good one. Bye.